Welcome to A Really Good Sex Chat, a podcast aiming to open up conversations about disability and sexuality. I'm your host, Candice Care-Unger, psychosexual therapist and specialist social worker at Care Rehab. Join us as we have frank conversations about sexuality, disability, fertility, pleasure, dating, and everything in between. This podcast is brought to you by Care Rehab and recorded on Darug land. In this episode, I'm talking with Dan Holt, peer and family support team leader with Spinal Cord Injuries Australia. Dan shares his experience of living with disability, his work educating others who have acquired a spinal cord injury, and how he went about reinventing himself to find his sexual confidence again. Hello, Dan. Thank you for joining us on A Really Good Sex Chat. It's nice to see you again. We used to know each other because I worked at the hospital and you were one of the peer support workers.
Yeah, 100%. So, g'day everyone out there in podcast world. My name is Dan Holt. I sustained an injury through a fall over in Canada in 2008. That injury wound up leaving me with a C5, C6 quadriplegic injury. I was living and working over in Canada at the time. I was a permanent resident, thank God, because I had no travel insurance. And it would have cost an absolute bomb.
Yeah.
Moving forward through everything nice and quickly, I work for a company called Spinal Cord Injuries Australia. I'm team lead of the peer and family support. We offer on the spinal units and community heavily in New South Wales, but also around Australia. We offer the lived experience through everything from right at the acute stage all the way through living with a spinal cord injury. And we work side by side with clinicians and other people in the community, other stakeholders that are really there, like yourself, for people that have suffered this injury and want to see people thrive after the fact.
Yeah, okay, cool. So you came into it as someone who had been through the unit. You'd lived the injury and now you're coming back with all of your wisdom. I feel like we should, full disclosure, I knew you when you first arrived back in Australia. And it's a rude shock, hey, going from living and partying and playing in Canada to returning home to Australia.
Yeah, 100%. The medical system over there, same, really.
Is it?
But moving back home to Australia was a bit of a shock, I think, coming back under the umbrella of even just moving back in with mum and dad, which wasn't something that, as a 26-year-old man, I had a partner at the time and we lived by ourselves, and I lived overseas for 5-6 years, and then all of a sudden did the whole hospital stint and then came out of hospital and launched into a community where I didn't really know it. We had to move to Vancouver. It just wasn't for me there, to be honest. Decided to move back for rehab purposes, and then when I moved back to Australia, it was a rude shock, for sure.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about living back home with mum and dad for a sec? I feel like this has come up for me in conversations with my clients lately, where suddenly you're home with mum and dad, and you haven't been there for years. Just what that's like, and then we're going to really hook turn that one and the impact it has on kind of your sex life and your privacy. And any thoughts?
Look, it was hard. I had, and don't get me wrong, my parents are and still are phenomenal.
We love you, mum and dad.
Yeah, the family support network I have is absolutely awesome. The partner that I had at the time, when we did move back, it was a rude shock because I went from having, an entire unit to ourselves to then just living back in a bedroom. Along with everything that came with the injury, I also then had, through no fault of their own, 2 helicopter parents that hovered over everything and always, I was back in the house. So if there was any arguments or if there was anything going on, they'd throw in their 2 cents, even though sometimes it wasn't welcome or needed. So that was definitely hard. And it does. I mean, it affects everything. Life's hard as it is without an injury. When people are arguing and not getting along it caused strain for sure.
Yeah, having mum and dad there. And, I kind of feel like for parents, when their kids have these injuries, they just want to protect them, right? They just want to wrap around and save them from it and try and fix it, and there's nothing they can do. And so sometimes parents can feel a little bit helpless. So, we'll park mum and dad there for a second. What kind of pressures do you think a spinal cord injury puts on relationships?
It's huge, and I think one of probably the saddest things that you do see in my line of work, being on the spinal injury unit from the acute stage all the way through that pressure cooker stage, it's one of the worst things that you do see is families break down. And I mean, these are families that they could have either just started dating
Mm.
or they could have been married for 30 years and have 3 or 4 kids, but the partner just goes, "Can't do it. Didn't sign up for it. Can't see a life that we used to have. Can't see outside the realm of the hospital." There's also the baggage like, "I didn't sign up to be a carer. How are we gonna do the things that we used to wanna do or the goals that we sort of plan for the rest of our lives?" So, sometimes, like, relationships end amicably, and others, it's a pretty horrible thing to witness. It's really bad, but at the end of the day, like, if they're not in it, they're not in it. You can't force someone to be in it with you, and unfortunately, that's just human nature. Partnerships fail due to anything. Maybe there was something that was low-lying, and this just festered to the top and made it even worse.
We
So,
used to kind of talk about it like a spotlight, maybe there was something happening already and it was
yeah,
okay or it was struggling and limping along, but the
yeah,
spinal cord injury kind of puts a spotlight on any pre-injury problems.
100%, and, like, when there's that one person that then's having to pick up the pieces possibly for all the kids and getting them all dropped off to school and dressed and out the door, or now they're the breadwinner. Everything used to be shared, and this other person, like, a lot of guilt comes with the injury. When I first went through, I found myself constantly apologizing for everything because I could see what it was doing to my family. I could see what it was doing to my partner at the time. And you just hold all this guilt. And then there's also that you don't want to be with me. You need to leave, get away. Like you force yourself almost away from them to almost give them the easy out.
Because it
Like,
feels like the kind thing to do? Like, what do you think's the
yeah,
rationale behind it?
almost. Yeah, like that's yeah. I think that's probably what it was. Like you didn't sign up for this. Like why would we both go? Why would I destroy both of our lives when I could just destroy mine? Sort of thing. Like
In the context of a new injury, a relationship that breaks down, how do you get back in the game?
yeah, that was a bit of a. And can we swear on this podcast?
Yes, it's fine. You can
Okay,
swear on the
bit of a head
podcast.
fuck. Because not only there was the whole relationship breakdown, and then there was the whole trust issues towards the end. How do I not just throw myself back out there, but how the fuck do I trust anyone
Yeah,
to let them
heal.
in? Right? How do I feel like that I deserve to be loved? How do I come back out of my shell to be the person that I want to be or be seen as?
Mm.
For those that can't see me, I'm a large red-headed male who is in a massive power chair and has a really loud voice. So to be seen in a crowd really isn't hard. But to be seen in a version of myself that I want to be seen and accepted and not pitied, I think was the big thing. There's always the question when I talk to clients, they sort of ask, how was I on the dating app? How did I throw myself out there? I did do all the dating apps and I did put a photo of just myself not in the chair first up,
Mm.
but if they clicked on the profile, they saw me in the chair. The other thing that I did disclose it in the like little blurb about yourself. So
Yeah.
like why, like there's always those comedic things where it's like, oh, you look nothing like your photo. It's like, well, I look exactly like my photo. You know what I mean? I just thought being open and honest was the easiest way. And it worked. I did get a couple of dates out of it. And I didn't make a connection with those people. I think it was more just getting the confidence out. It wasn't really me looking for anything else out of it.
There's two schools of thought on the dating apps. One is to use
Mhm.
pre-injury photos so that way people understand that this is something that's been acquired, and then put some post-injury photos so they get a bit of a real life vibe. The other school of thought is just pre-injury life is finished, so no need for photos of pre-injury life. Do you have a thought on that?
I mean, it's up to the individual what they're happy to do, right? Like, if that's how they want to tell their story, power to you. I also see the other side of things where a lot of people are like, this is my new life. This is where I want to start from. But you've also come from somewhere.
Beautiful.
And I think as long as you set the boundaries straight up, like, I don't want to be pitied because I think that's where people may say, like, I'll only put the new photos up compared to the old photos as well. Because you don't want that, oh, you poor thing. It's like, I don't want a pity root. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
most of the time you take one, but, like, you don't have to force one on you. For a lot of people, that is definitely one thing that they do struggle with, like, "This is my rebirth, and power to you, the phoenix, it's risen from the ashes." But a lot of the time, you sort of have to just be honest, right? Like, you have had an injury. This is through no fault of your own. Then go down that honest pathway. And I don't know, it may capture a bit more of people's attention. But again, like if someone can't take you, everyone's out there selling their best self in
Mm,
those dating apps. Sometimes people already lie on them too much, like photoshopping photos. What's the point? I'm going to
no.
meet you eventually, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So I think just being open and honest as much as you feel comfortable with, getting back out and just doing the things that make you you, whether
Mm.
that's in the dating game, but even just socializing. You can still have your dating apps, but like still go out and do other things, like go to the pub or go to a gym or a yoga class or whatever floats your boat. You know what I mean? Because it will build your confidence up just to be an everyday person in society. And in that, who knows? You may meet someone that's not even on these toxic dating apps that I find that you'll fall in love with.
I think dating is one of those areas that there's just so many moving parts. There's no one right
Yeah.
way. It's really got to
No.
be whatever feels comfortable and
Yeah.
people feel ready for, and people feel like they'll be authentic, and that they're going to be happy with what's out there. So I know you have
Hmm.
a romantic love story. I love a love story. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about how you met your now
Yeah. By the
partner?
way,
Yeah. Yeah.
I met Kate through my best mate, it's his sister. So that was
Mhm.
an awkward conversation once it all came out. It was one of those relationships I think that just grew over time from a great friendship. I was blind to the fact that she even fancied me. So I just had that wall up again, right? And it wasn't that it was not trust, it was just oblivious to the fact that we were just such good friends. One thing, I guess, led to another, and
Now you're a happily married man.
happily married, man. So, looking down the road of family and stuff at the moment. So, yeah, we're chipping away at
Yeah.
it.
With hindsight, looking back, are you kind of surprised sometimes that life is where it is? Is it what you could have imagined?
Definitely not. Like, I'm super happy. This injury blows me away. Like, I can get dropped through the floor with one thing that happens in my life and then uplifted through the roof. My relationship's amazing. Kate made me feel that I was deserved of love again. And that was
Mm.
something that I really struggled with. The open and honest communicators that we are, there's nothing really that can shake us too much. Even in the short period of time that we have been together and married, we've faced some pretty crazy adversities that a lot of people don't have to, even just COVID aside. Yeah, we've been through hell and back already with a lot of things, and we continue just to stay as strong
Mm.
as we ever were. So, yeah.
What are some of the common themes or concerns about sexuality that might pop up in your peer support role? Like, what are guys bringing to you?
I guess the biggest one is, and like myself, it was like, can I still have sex? Can I still have kids? What can I use? If I can't feel it, is it still good? I can't orgasm. How can I orgasm? Can I ejaculate? Is my fertility still there? All these questions don't really have anything to do with spinal cord injury because able bodied people have the same questions. So it's a lot of how do you do it? And, like I don't go into the nitty gritty side of it, especially with guys in a relationship. You need to tell your significant other everything that's going on with your body, what works, what doesn't, what could happen, what might not happen. That's everything from bowel and bladder accidents to reflex erections to inability to ejaculate or ejaculate, and how autonomic dysreflexia could affect you, what positions you can get into, all these things. It needs to be an open conversation so that at least if something does happen adversely, it's not a surprise to the partner. And that way it's not made a massive deal, which I think is one of the big things that people are scared that if something goes wrong, the partner's not going to love them anymore or they're not going to want
Mm.
to do it again. And it's not the case.
People get afraid to try again and then become avoidant.
100%. And, like one of the things we always say is it's literally like losing your virginity again because everything's new. Nothing works like it used to. So you need to experiment. You need to have fun. You need to actually probably be a little more attentive than you were before.
And in many
And it's not
ways,
all about you, which I think maybe was my old way of looking things. And now I'm super focused on my partner compared to myself,
yeah.
if
So
any.
you think it's changed? Like your attention in sex has changed?
Yeah, as I nod on a podcast that you can
Yeah.
only hear me. Yes.
Some
Yeah,
people
100%.
talk about their sex life after spinal injury feeling more connected,
Mhm.
more,
Yeah, I get that.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
More in
more
tune, I guess,
intentional.
tapping going on, more sensual, just all over feeling better.
We talk about, what's the purpose of sex in your relationship, and they kind of fall into some broad categories. For some, yeah, procreation might be one, but for many it might be pleasure or stress management or bonding in the relationship or how People like to manage their overall self-esteem and feeling the object of
Yes.
someone else's desire, and feeling like they can still pleasure their partner. And so there's
Mhm.
lots of aspects to sex. So can I say, well, what's the purpose of sex in your relationship? Because if it's like a stress management sex, like it improves our sleep or it improves our mood, well, that's a very different intervention. That's a very orgasm focused type of sex, as opposed to the purpose
Mhm.
of sex in our relationship is really about bonding and pleasure. And that
Yeah.
sounds a lot more sensual and connected. And that's not to say that, sex can't achieve multiple things, but when you're kind of really drilling down to what are people craving and wanting, then you start to see the themes, and the themes are very different types of interventions for how to achieve those goals.
I think one of the questions that we also get asked too, it's the loss of identity in how they used to perform the act.
Tell me more. What do you mean by that?
You can't throw your partner around like you used to, like for a lot of us, because we are just a pegboard laying on our back. There's not much else you can actually do when you're doing the act unless you have good stability or good transfer, or you have the equipment that's there that's needed with wedges and other things to be able to maneuver yourself around. So there's also that aspect that people think that it's not going to be fun anymore because you
Mm.
can't do all the things you used to do. But as we just discussed, like there's so many other things that you can do and you can add to the repertoire, toys and gadgets that would never have thought about or seen before. Some of these sex talks that we do on the unit, some of the things that get pulled out at these talks, I'm like, what the hell is that? So,
But it kind of sounds a little bit more open minded.
yeah, 100%. And I think too, like just the taboo of the conversation is something that we really try and pierce through. A lot of people still don't want to talk about it the way I look at it. Everyone's a sexual being until they're in a pine box and put under the dirt. So that's some of the funny conversations that you have with the younger guys to then go in and talk to a older gentleman about the same thing. And everyone's got the same question.
I honestly say to like other clinicians when I do training, you can't pick who's going to be interested just by
No.
looking at them. You can't assume, oh, if they're single they're not interested, or it's only the ones that are partnered up that are interested, or it's only the young ones that are interested. But I do say, if you're not talking to the young ones, you're not talking to anyone, because they're the
Yeah.
easy ones to talk to.
Some of the young guys that have been through the units in the last couple of years, you go into their room and they've just got toys stacked up next to them. It's like, what is that? Or a nurse picks something up and they're like, oh, I'd put gloves on. It's just like, oh my God. Which is great to see, a lot more open about everything when it comes to sexuality
We're
compared to,
definitely seeing a big like sex positive movement and a
yeah,
whole culture shift happening, which, in terms of on the other side for the clinicians, my advice to hospitals and rehab teams is always talk to everyone, don't discriminate who, you just kind of methodically work it into your work. So that way nobody gets missed, and you'll catch the fish, so to say, that want to be that want the information, that you've cast the net wide enough to be able to bring
yeah,
them all in. Interestingly, though, the literature always says that people want to talk to people with the spinal cord injury about it. Like, the health professionals are all well and good, and they've probably got some stuff to help, and that's fine. But the majority of people want to learn and hear the lived experience. So, how did you kind of get comfortable talking about sex?
if you haven't figured it out by now, listener, I kind of can talk to anyone about anything. I don't really get embarrassed. And I think that's one of the good things about our team is that we've all come from different backgrounds. We've all had the good relationships, bad relationships, the kicks in life that we've come through. It's taught us the ability to open up and be vulnerable. Being able to judge the room, I guess, in how to approach it with someone is a big thing that over time and doing the role for a little bit, you do sort of start to pick up, and you'd know as well being on the
Hmm.
units that you start to pick up cues on people's sense of humor. Like if they're a straighty 180, you're probably not going to get too much out of them. You might just need to give them their own literature and they can ask you direct questions.
Mm.
However, if you've got a bit of a larrikin that doesn't mind taking the piss out of themselves, or or me, I really don't mind. And you build that friendship up, and they sort of drop those walls down.
Mm.
It's probably not something on day one that you start banging into the nuts and bolts of everything. More the fact that it is still possible, 100%, and then move
Mm.
on. A lot of those conversations in the acute stage, like I've had parents come up and say, are they still going to be able to have a family? It's
Mm.
like, well, if they're lucky enough to, if there was no reason before the injury, there's normally not a reason after. Like some of the qualities and count of the semen go down, but where there's a will, there's a way. So
All
that
you
sort of
need
puts
is one.
exactly
What
right,
the
and that sort
IVF
of puts
doctors
mum and dad
say,
at
all you
ease.
need is one.
Yeah, it's like I still want them, but then it's sort of getting that then across to the client as well. There's just a different way that it's got to be done. Unfortunately, the funding comes into it as well, which is a bit of a pain in the ass when you want to have a family. But like, it's not funded enough for people that, through no fault of their own with their disability, that they can't access something that most people can do for free. On the other side, I mean, NDIS and eye care are fantastic when it comes to paying for things that are tools and assistive technology, I guess you would call it, to help you have the act.
So, when you had your injury and you were learning about sex for the first time, and kind
Mm.
of what that might look like, what was helpful for you as you were learning and what was not helpful?
To be honest, didn't really get too much out of the sex therapist that was over there. I think I'll go straight into the what wasn't helpful
Okay.
because it was such an awkward first experience for me at the time. I was put in this small room with this female I didn't know. She pulled down a large box of sort of sex toys and vibrators and things like that. I was like, all right, cool. And then she started talking about erogenous zones and re-experiencing new erogenous zones above the level of injury. So I was like, all right, cool. And she said, like what you might find your earlobes are erogenous zone now. I was like, oh, okay. But as she was saying that, she reached forward and grabbed my earlobes
Oh, okay.
to where I cringed back in my chair and was like, okay,
It's not
thank
an erogenous zone now.
yeah, I trialed by trial and error. The nursing staff over there were good with, here's some Viagra, go and try it, but didn't sort of go into the nuts and bolts of time your medication because it won't work if you're taking any antispasmatics.
Mm.
Maybe use a cock ring or a cock pump to help, or here's their version of Cavijet, which was called Triple P, I think. Even injecting that, like, wasn't really given a rundown on it. I think that's probably one of the other things why I'm such an open book when it comes to talking and telling people what's out there, is because I didn't have that education. So I want to make sure, like this, most of the stuff in my role, that we tell people to get over the bad stuff that we had to do so they don't have to go down that path.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Um,
what motivates many people to go into helping roles, having not had the
mm,
help at a time where they felt like they wanted it. And so
correct.
kind of feeling like they could be the gap filler or they could be what they didn't have.
I think one of the probably the worst things for me, and I think I still fall into the category, is that I'm all good to hand out information, but a lot of the time I don't take it on myself.
Oh,
Uh,
Dan.
but that's still something that I work on the daily to improve. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Like, I'm aware of it and I try and make it better.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I've always been that way.
That's hilarious. All right. So, what I'm learning here is that you learn a little bit about sexuality on the ward. Could have been better.
Hmm.
You haven't really given me a lot for what is helpful other than trial and error, which I think is fair. And a lot of people talk about trial and error. So, maybe my real question is what has been one of the most useful things for you in re establishing yourself as the sexy beast post injury?
My job and the education I received through that, amazing. The upskilling that we get through people like yourself and other clinicians, and just talking to doctors and not kind of being on the other side of the curtain and sort of learning and upskilling a bit more, not just at that client level, but it's sort of in that in between area. It's been quite amazing. I think you can agree that the industry for erectile dysfunction medication, all the new sex toys, and the sex positive culture that we live in now, compared to even, I mean, I'm only injured, but I'm coming up on 16 years. And in that short space of time, it's been a huge shift and a huge amount of money and research has gone into it. The biggest thing that I think has helped is upskilling, but then I think just growing confidence in myself as time's gone on, improving, like setting small tasks and setting small goals, like throwing myself back out there to be online and be dating, and even, like not even meeting up with someone, just chatting with them online. Tell a stranger I didn't know, being vulnerable-ish, a bit of sexy back and forth talk, to then, going on a date with someone, again, throwing yourself out there. So I guess it was sort of breaking down those small barriers to then gain the confidence that I had, that I felt safe in myself. I felt confident in my surroundings. Just opened the door to see what happened, to see what the potential was.
Kind of sounds a little bit like it's directly correlated with your adjustment and your acceptance and your mood. As you got to understand your injury better, got to understand yourself better, and started to feel more like yourself again, then your
Mm.
confidence for maybe
Yeah, there's
partnering up
5
again.
stages, right?
You're talking about the 5
Uh,
stages of grief?
yeah,
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 what role
because
do
it
you
is.
think grief plays in terms of sex and spinal cord injury?
It's the loss of something, it's acceptance of something, it's adjustment. Anger, you're angry you can't do the things you used to be able to do, you might get angry that you don't have an erection when you need it, or it doesn't sustain itself in time. You come to accept it.
Anger is definitely grief. I see people who are angry and I think they're bloody sad. There's a lot happening right now for them,
Yeah,
and this is grief. When grief is big and consuming, do you think it takes a bit of an impact on your libido? Like, do you want to get back in the sack?
100%. When you're not in the right headspace, whether you're able-bodied or after the injury, especially after the injury, like one of the big things about these pills that you can take for your psyche, they're against your libido. One, not only are you being given a pill to make you happy, but it's having an adverse effect on your libido and your sex life. Like you may have gained a lot of weight. The body image side of things will destroy your feeling sexy, even.
You're nailing it there in terms of the psychological. Like, if you're not feeling great, it's really hard to then feel sexy.
Able-bodied or not, if you're not feeling good about yourself, you're not going to feel in the mood for it. If you're not in the mood, you're not in the mood. It's the last and furthest thing for a lot of people in their mind because they just don't think that they are deserved of,
Mm.
which is something that, hopefully we can start to flip the switch on.
Yeah, so tell me how you flip a switch.
It's about the open conversation. It's about learning those coping mechanisms and doing little things in your life to be able to just help change your mindset just for that day. A friend of mine said, no bad days. You might be having a shit day, but there's 1% of that day. There's still something good, whether it's you catch a glimpse of good sun or there's a nice wave or
The
you get to
gratitude
play with your
mindset.
pet. Yeah, exactly. Like this, it's never 100% bad. And it's really hard to shift that silver lining when you're laying in a hospital bed with a neck brace on, with bells and whistles hanging off you, and someone doing bowel care on you or whatever. And it's just, you do not feel like a sexy human. And you have all these things with personal care that used to be more of a private thing happening. And learning how to separate that is hard. It's hard to regain your dignity after you've been in hospital for, like I was in there for 7 months. So, like, there's a whole bunch of strangers playing with my bits and pieces that I didn't want down there. And, there was a lot of awkward situations where I would get a reflex erection and it was never at the best time when transferring to the bed and laying flat or
Like,
standing up in physio. Not a great time.
as great as your physio is, I don't
So,
actually find you very attractive. This is nothing to do with my attraction to you. This is all to do with blood
right?
flow and muscles.
Yeah. And just things that even you don't understand yet. And if it hasn't been explained to you properly, you're like, well, why is it happening now? So there's also that confusion part of it as well. If things don't work the first time, disheart comes into it. And then if they don't work the second time, and then the third, and it just compiles, and you're like, why do I even try? Because it's not going to work. Or I don't think I need it anymore. It sucks to see. I mean, I've been in that situation. It takes a bit to come out of it.
Yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so, other than talking about it with your partner, what are your top tips for trying to feel sexy again?
Do the things that made you you before your injury, whether even that's just getting your hair done, sprucing up, wear a nice cologne. If you want to go to the gym, if you want to go and get a fake tan, whatever your gig was, do it again. Get out of your, I mean, as I sit here in a hoodie and track pants, but get out of your hospital track pants. I say to clients all the time, like when you leave hospital, burn your clothes that you're in hospital with. It should be like a release party from there, and then start again fresh. Buy a new pair of kicks, whatever makes you feel good and puts a smile on your face. That's the start, and then build from there for the rest of the day.
And lovely. Nice. One of the things that comes up a bit after a spinal cord injury is the ability to ejaculate, because that's a spinal reflex, right? So being able to ejaculate is something that many people can do after a spinal cord injury that maybe they don't realize. And then, of course, there's a group of people who either will never or with some intervention can. What's been your experience with this whole issue of ejaculating, and what kind of conversations are you having with people on the ward about it?
I think this comes down to the loss of masculinity again. I guess it's been sort of put into our mindset from the caveman era. Man gets hard on, man ejaculates, babies come. So not being able to do two of those things is a loss hugely. A lot of guys dangerously go down the avenue of trying to figure it out, whether they use things they should or shouldn't use. But there are devices out there which are amazing. The 30 Care, which is super expensive, pretty clinical looking device, but if you've got the funding for it, it works. There's another one, the Vibra X3.
Can't get that in Australia right now. So,
Yeah, I was just
but
about to say stocks. It was obviously so popular that the stocks are totally run out. But again, there's a bad side to it and a side that you really need to be careful of because of the people that are affected by autonomic dysreflexia. You can cause major damage to yourself. As those that do know about autonomic dysreflexia is you can eventually have a stroke from it, so it's not great. But also just the damage to the area. These devices do vibrate at a pretty high rate, so being careful and using them as they're meant to be used, because even that reflex muscle that causes ejaculation, if you overuse that, it gets damaged for life. So
okay.
it's it's something that you want to be a little bit careful around and utilize people like yourself or your medical team and get doctor's advice before you use these things for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to do any further injuries. On your journey
Mhm.
to ejaculate again, did you have like tips or tricks?
If I was planning on having a go, not to take my regular medication, I can successfully under vibration ejaculate, but not just regularly. If I was to like masturbate with my hand, I couldn't. But with the Vibrect or the other strong vibrating tools, I can
Yeah.
ejaculate.
Which
It does
makes
cause
sense.
autonomic dysreflexia though.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's where, like, if I am going to do it, it's almost like a process. Like, I've got to
Yeah.
make sure that things are around that if shit goes south, I'm not going to die from what I'm doing. I mean, it's a great way to go out.
It's not
Don't
the
get me
great way to
wrong,
diet.
but it's not
It's not a
it's not
great
the way
way.
that you want to be found. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just a matter of doing it in a safe environment. I think is the
What's your
biggest thing.
process, Dan, for staying
What do you
safe?
mean? So I always carry my GTN spray on me,
Yep.
or if I have been taking ED medication, I have Captopril, which
Yep.
is a tablet goes under your tongue, and both these things drop your blood pressure to a manageable level, so you can figure out what's going on to get rid of any autonomic dysreflexia. And then making sure I've got my phone near me if I do need to call 000.
So how do you stay in a sexy mindset whilst also thinking, hope I don't die today?
I think when I've ejaculated, I don't really do it more in a sexy sense. It's more of to get a job done, to get a
Okay.
stress release, get a semen sample for fertility, and then everything else that I do in that realm is more at the whole body orgasm, not just the ejaculation.
Which goes back to what I was talking about before about what's the purpose of sex. And if
Correct.
you're doing other sensual activities, it's more about bonding and connecting. And the times that you decide, you know what, I'm going to try and see if I can ejaculate, it's conscious choice that requires setup planning, safety planning for you as well. And maybe not something that you're doing as often as you would have before because there's a lot of risks there.
Yeah. I mean, I know someone that used this device, and it literally says on the packet, use once every 7 days for no longer than 5 minutes. He told me, and this is someone that shouldn't get dysreflexia, he was getting headaches. He was using it for up to 5 to 10 minutes at a time. He was using it 7 days a week and was not having any luck. And I was like, mate, what are you doing? It literally
Yeah.
says in bold print. And for him, it was a hang up to actually be able to get back to doing what he used to do and how he used to do it. And through other means and ways, through acupuncture and some other therapies that he trialed, he was successful. But again, that's not saying that every person fits into that same box. Even though everything that I've said today, it may not affect everyone the same way. And that's the really shitty thing about this injury is that there's no one rhyme or reason to fix or get the best out of something once you've got a spinal cord injury. There's so many different levels of it. There's so many different recoveries. That's also one of the big things that we try and make sure that we let people know is that, like having an open mind, it's not a quick process. There's going to be failures and you've got to be able to ride those failures out. be prepared to try again.
Even try and make sense of those failures and be able to
Yeah,
rework them from not being failures, but being learning experiences or being
yeah,
the first step. And now you're going to step it up or step it down depending on
yeah.
what's
Because
happening. And
a
when
lot
we
of the
still,
guys and girls, I mean, they all talk on the unit as well. So, like, maybe they're trying something, and the next day they'll say, "Oh, how did that go?" Or "Guess what I did last night." So you're a little bit happy that your neighbours had some success, but then you go, "Oh, let's try that," and it doesn't work for you because you don't have the same level of injury. You don't have the same sensation.
no. I think one of the things that has surprised me about my work the last few years is it's very person centered. I can take a full history, sexual history, spinal cord injury history, and understand all of the factors that will either help or inhibit what someone's options are. And then, of course, yeah, I have a pretty high success rate in terms of being able to give good advice. And so then people will call me and be like, "Oh my god, you'll never believe what happened." And, like, there's so much excitement. I feel like I've become, like, the cheerleader on the in the background, just being like, "Woo, yeah, I'm so glad, I'm
And that's
so
what we
happy
need
for you."
sometimes. That's what we need sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like some guy rang me the other day and he's like, "The man of the house is back." And I just I kinda I had a bit of a laugh, like, "Thanks for calling me." Like, these aren't phone calls I used to get, but now I
Um,
get, like, "You'll never believe I ejaculated again." Yeah. And I think that's one of the kind of fun parts of the work here, like, I don't want us to make sex sound all serious and sad and hard and
Yeah.
because, it's
It's not
fun
meant to be
and
clinical, it's meant to be messy, it's meant to be fun, it's meant to be slippery, it's meant to be awesome.
yeah.
So,
And
like,
sometimes it can
it's
cause a lot of stress.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And again, I think reiterating that whether you've got a disability or live with a disability or don't, there's a lot of these things that cross over that people just don't talk about. We're just open to talking about it because we talk about everything else really fast. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You're a good resource, Dan. You and your team, they're such an amazing, the number of people that I have spoken to that have said peer support was exactly what I needed at the right time, and to have the lived experience there to complement the clinicians and having worked with you as one of the clinicians, it's such a great tool and resource to be able to have running concurrently to clinical care and to know that we're kind of all working together from the same song sheet. I'm a huge fan, and I guess like one of the things that keeps coming up through the literature is this need to have people lived experience, the clinicians kind of doing co-education together, like a double-pronged approach. And it kind of keeps it much more accessible. And so there'll be people that want to chat in the corridor to you, and there'll be people that want to have an appointment with me. And it's cool that we're able to offer whatever people want. There's not one size fits all. So I just want to
100%.
say huge thank you for your time tonight and for
No
being willing
promise.
to chat all things sex and spinal cord injury.
Yeah, I really hope that a lot of people can get to hear this and get to hear the rest of your podcast, and hopefully it helps. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So
Yeah,
thank you for
exactly.
having me on.
This episode of A Really Good Sex Chat touched on a number of issues, including grief and anger, relationship breakdown, and feeling worthy of love post injury. These are such important issues to address when adjusting to a new injury and starting to get back into the dating game and allowing yourself to feel loved. A huge thanks to Dan for sharing his story and his work as a peer support officer with us. If you have enjoyed this episode or any of our really good sex chats, please rate us on Spotify so others can find this podcast as well. We look forward to catching you next time.